Hello, my name is William Joseph Cobble. I am the author of the ongoing Contending with Paul book series. Today I'll be reading an excerpt from book 1 in that series. It's entitled Contending with Paul, the hidden story behind the writing of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. This excerpt comes from chapter 2 from the subsection entitled Accepting Paul's Unique Vocabulary. Paul's primary theological term is to euangelion. Though the root of this word and its adjectival form appear prior to Christian texts, Paul's specific form with the article is not found prior to Christian writings. It occurs 76 times in the New Testament, and though often translated as the gospel or good news, this unique form of the word could be more accurately translated as the reliable report, the special announcement, or the faithfully relayed message. All phrases similar to those utilized by Mark. The term does not necessarily denote that the message is good as much as it is reliable. For example, an announcement such as election results or the outcome of a battle could be faithfully relayed, but would not be good news to all sides. Of the 76 instances to euangelion appears in the New Testament, 66 are found in works attributed to Paul, and 7 more are found within the text of the Gospel of Mark. This demonstrates the likelihood of the word originating with Paul and then being embraced by Mark. The first verse of Mark is likely the document's intended title, quote, the beginning or origin of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. That is chapter 1, verse 1. Whereas Paul had proclaimed his gospel/good news, Mark is telling his readers that he is providing its origin story. When most modern Christians hear, quote, the gospel or good news, they think of it as synonymous with Christian preaching or as a genre of Christian writing. Neither is how Paul originally meant it. To Paul, the gospel/good news is the message he had been given by the risen Jesus to proclaim, especially the Gentiles. It may have been no more than a declaration of Jesus' death, resurrection, ascension, and return, and how one's faith, especially Gentile faith apart from the law, will allow participation in the benefits generated by these events. Paul says this about the origin of the gospel in Galatians, quote, for I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that the gospel that was proclaimed by me is not of human origin, for I did not receive it from a human source, nor was I taught it, but I received it through a revelation of Jesus Christ. That's Galatians 1, verses 11 through 12. For further evidence that to euangelion originated with Paul, it is beneficial to examine his epistle to the church in Rome, which was not a church founded by him, nor one he had yet visited. When Paul uses to euangelion in Romans, he seldom means a universal shared faith. He does not speak of the gospel/good news as given to us or our gospel, but twice says my gospel. Remember, report, announcement, or message. Notice in the first example below that even though the Roman church is already established and thriving, Paul is wanting to, quote, proclaim the gospel to them, meaning it is not something they already had, but something Paul would provide them when he arrived. These are only 3 examples. 1, quote, hence my eagerness to proclaim the gospel to you also who are in Rome, for I am not ashamed of the gospel. That's chapter 1, verses 15 and 16. 2, on that day when, according to my gospel, that's chapter 2, verse 16. And number 3, now to God who is able to strengthen you according to my gospel. That is chapter 16, verse 25. In Galatians, Paul tells of how he took his gospel to the apostles for their validation. Quote, then I laid before them, though only in a private meeting with the acknowledged leaders, the gospel that I proclaim among the Gentiles in order to make sure that I was not running or had not run in vain. That is Galatians 2:2. It is also in Galatians where Paul will tell his congregation that even if an angel from heaven says his gospel is wrong, that angel should be accursed. Perhaps because Paul's gospel had come directly from Jesus, a higher authority. Quote, but even if we or an angel from heaven should proclaim to you a gospel contrary to what we proclaim to you, let that one be accursed. Galatians chapter 1, verse 8. Therefore, by Mark incorporating Paul's distinct vocabulary of to euangelion, his Gentile readers would not have been confused by words like the message, the gospel, the good news, or the word, and understood exactly what Jesus was teaching, preaching, proclaiming. Paul proclaimed the gospel he said he had received from Jesus. Mark is demonstrating that Jesus proclaimed the same gospel, showing the two in absolute ministerial harmony. Contending with Paul.